Don't you just hate it when people tell you what to do, or even worse, what not to do? What if I tell you those constraints, in some instances, can be beneficial to you? Hey, my name is Werner Puchert, and I believe that most of the world's problems are just interesting design challenges or constraints in disguise. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about constraints, but then also, of course, as always, introduce you to a game that you should not play. Do not play this game. So stick around. When I think back in my career when I started out, that I dreamt about having a blank canvas brief. Banner, go out and do whatever you want to. But as soon as that started happening, I found it very frustrating. I found myself being less creative. I needed those constraints. What is the time? What is the kind of people that I need to design for? What are their problems? What are their budgets? What is the budget of the client? Those kind of things started kicking in, and that started making me feel that I'm much more creative when I'm in a bit more of a controlled environment. However, it wasn't about control. It was about introducing and also figuring out what is the constraints in the design brief. And that is not just me feeling like that. A couple of years ago, I found this book, A Beautiful Constraint, where they really deep dive the idea around how constraints actually drive creativity and how you can use constraints to your benefit. Definitely a book that I would recommend you check out if you're interested in this topic. However, this is not a book review, this is a review of an interesting game. So a couple of months ago, I came across this awesome little box here called Don't Do This Game. This is a game that is related to some publications by Donald Ruiz. I think there's a book. I think there might also be a notebook. I didn't really dive into that because I am addicted to design tools and games. So before we get into the gameplay, let's do a quick unboxing here. So I want to point something out right at the beginning, that this is probably one of the least well-produced tools that I've ever purchased. The box is a bit flimsy, and also the cards are super thin. There's also kind of like color. Yeah, I'll show you in a second. However, you have the box. There's some gameplay instructions here at the back, some information, and then of course some information also contained on the sides of the box, some illustration. Here is a quote by Orson Welles: "The enemy of art is the absence of limitations." So you get where this is going. You've just seen me grab out the 3 rule cards. Does nothing to do with the categories, but unpacks, surprise, surprise, the rules for the gameplay. 3 simple steps, which we'll get into in a second. Just to dive into the cards and give you an idea of the premise, I'm going to quickly unpack one of the categories. What I've shown you now is true for each of the 3 categories. So you have in one of the categories, I'm tip that out, you have a set of cards, surprise, surprise. At the bottom, kind of keeps you on track with what the different cards represent here. So if I slide this open, oh, by the way, there's a little divider card in each of the categories that has a little quote here and a little bit of a thing that you need to consider. I'll put that to the side for a moment. Now, as you can see here, you have black and white. So at the base, you have the don't statements on black cards, and you have the do statements on white cards. In this specific category, what differentiates from the other 2 categories is that you have don't what and do what. And you can see here, at least when you look at the do's, that they are different. And what is different? To see this, you have to flip it over, and you'll see, surprise, surprise, once again, that there's a little statement at the back of the card. So in the what category for do, you have create a system. So this is what you need to do. Just flip through here. Do create a medium. So and on and on. So there's tons of these. Now, what shouldn't you do? And then you have the kind of statements here. So don't make the size adaptable. Use only asymmetric shapes. So these are all the things that you shouldn't do. Use only round shapes. So this is the do and don't for the what and what categories. To show you the rest of the cards, I'm going to simulate a quick gameplay, or at least talk through how you play the game, and then show you what the rest of the card deck looks like and how you play. Now, with the how you play, there's 2 different ways you could approach this. The one way, the one I'm going to show you now, is maybe you just want to have a little bit of fun, maybe a bit of ideation, explore certain topics that are very broad. You want to bring a couple of friends together. This is the way that you will play it, that I'm going to show in a second. The other way that I'll talk about at the end of the segment is that you have a specific project or topic in mind, and you can also use this gameplay to explore that specific topic. Now for the general gameplay, here we have the different categories. You've seen this first category and the cards, the premise, the statements at the back of the cards are all the same. You can also now see the different kind of icons, which helps you kind of navigate this card deck when you have to sort them out. But now what I wanted to point out is that you've seen the do what and don't what, and I would recommend though that, or point out that sometimes with the do and don'ts, I get confused. Maybe it's just my old age kicking in, but it's not really about you getting confused. It's all about this creative exploration. So just go with the flow. Do go with the flow. Second category here, you have do who. So this is target audience. So for someone you love, for example, there's children, elderly people, all kinds of groups. And then what's interesting, you'll see here, it's don't how. So like avoid doing it this way. So don't use electricity, for example, is a card here. You can see the statements are consistent, the way they put forth. And then you have the why. So why am I doing this? So in this case here, you have to eradicate sexism. There's a whole bunch of them in this category over here. And then why am I not doing this is that make it work outdoors. So of course here you can interpret that. Now the way you play this is that each player, and you're not going to lay it out, people will get the cards in their hands, of course. Each player will get one card from each of the groups. So let's simulate that. I'm getting a card here from each of the different groups. Remember, the white represents the do and the black represents what you shouldn't be doing or considering, and then I flip them around. So rule number 2 on the pink cards, point out that if there's something that you receive that you're not kind of keen on or you're getting stuck, throw it out and grab another card from the same category. Now let's explore what I have received. Now imagine I'm sitting with a bunch of friends. This is the cards in my hand. So what am I doing? I am about to create a vehicle. I need to do this, but I shouldn't be using red, green, or blue. And I can interpret that the way I want to, of course. Then who am I designing this for? I'm doing this for 30-somethings. So I have to design it for this group of people, but I should only use fluid materials. That's interesting. That's quite interesting. Then why am I doing it? I'm doing this to reduce waste. And I promise you, I didn't pre-plan this. So I'm going to reduce waste. And then the other objective is that I don't want to make it, or I should make it ultra light. So it mustn't be too heavy. So don't make it too heavy. So you can see here the interpretation of the don'ts got me tripped up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's just about the gameplay. So you will kind of consider the cards. Each person has a set of them for themselves. And then at some point you will reveal your cards and then also talk about the concept that you have come up with. So you can see how interesting this can get. Now I've mentioned that these cards or this gameplay can also be used for existing projects. The way that they recommend you do this is by getting rid of the do's, putting them separate, and then taking your how might we statement, your project, your plan, and then considering or playing the game the same way, now that you have a project, but then you are only considering the constraints from the different categories. So that's the way that you will then repeat the same gameplay. You have a specific project in mind, but you're only focusing on the constraints. Let's wrap this up. Thought experiments for creative people. Don't play this game. Don't buy this game. Do buy this game. If you want to, go to BIS Publishers to find out more. No affiliation to me. One thing I would say though is like I bought this during the course of the pandemic, forgot about it a little bit, and then as I was doing the production of this video, I wasn't pre-planning any of the card combinations, and as I kind of laid it out, it just came back to me again how creative and inspiring this can be if you have the right people around the table with you. So definitely go check it out. And then of course, as I end this up, I would love to know how you navigate constraints. If there's any interesting tips that you can share with me, would love to know. And then as always, thanks for watching and catch you in the comments.